Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today we're talking about the connection between self-esteem and religion. We talk a lot about religious recovery here, and I really want to make sure we're super clear about the connection that exists between self-esteem and religion, self-esteem, religious recovery, because there's a lot of connection there. I want to start with some research that I found, and this was in the Journal of Health and Religion, dated back to 2020. With 95% confidence, they found self-esteem to be a mediator between religious comfort and life satisfaction, between fear and guilt and life satisfaction, between negative emotions about God and life satisfaction, and negative social interactions around religion and life satisfaction. Just to get super clear on what that means, a mediator is something that is caused by an independent variable, influences the dependent variable, and heightens the statistic correlation between the two variables when it is included. So, to take it outside of religion for a second, or to put it a little more in my wheelhouse, we've got comfort with one's sexuality and overall satisfaction with your sex life is highly correlated when you factor in self-esteem. As you should know by now, unless this is your first video on this channel, I am suspicious when we enter these kind of premises through a religious lens. I worked in churches for a long time. I worked around religious people for my whole life, either as a consumer of the product they were giving or as a producer of that religious product. I've never been super convinced that the church, for example, cares a whole lot about people's self-esteem or life satisfaction. So this interested me to see kind of what they came up with. So under the guise of these other topics like religious comfort and fear and guilt and negative emotions towards God and negative social interactions around religion, it would seem to me like the approach of this study is specifically to either prove or disprove that religious belief out there that those who do not follow a religion, specifically those who are not Christians, are lost and miserable and sad and lonely. And that's something that you hear a lot if you are in a position to hear things from Christian people. Now, I, like many of you, since leaving religion and leaving that structure behind, my self-esteem has gone up, my life satisfaction has gone up. A lot of Christians, especially conservative or evangelical Christians, would say that's because I'm living for the moment, or I'm relying on my own pleasure, or focusing on that and not on the bigger picture and all of that. And to that I would say, duh. Yeah, duh. The thing about religion and its influence on self-esteem is that you're not encouraged to have good self-esteem within the context of religion. Because if you have good self-esteem and you have good self-worth and you feel good about yourself, it is going to make you call into question the other pieces of religion that rely on you thinking less of yourself. For instance, in a specifically Christian setting, you are expected to lean not on your own understanding and trust God and his ways. Earlier today, I came across a lovely meme that I don't remember the exact words of, but essentially it says that God did not remove the Red Sea, he parted it, and similarly, he will not remove your obstacles and make a way for you through them, which is a lovely sentiment and honestly one that at some point in time I would have found a lot of comfort in. But the issue there is it's hearkening to a story of Moses leading the people out of Egypt and through the Red Sea. The Red Sea wasn't the problem. The army chasing them was the problem. But the army chasing them was the establishment, and let's not look at the establishment as the problem, right? Because if you do that within religion, that's problematic. High self-worth is not regarded as something that is desirable within most religions. Most religions are reliant on people following them and believing them, right? And if you are reliant on someone following and believing what you believe, really in order to continue your life, like pastors do, like church employees do, the vitalness of them believing you to be an authority and God to be an authority, it cannot be overstated. When I worked in a church and I was reliant on the number of kids that would come to my youth group in order to show my value to the church, in order to show that they should continue to pay my salary, which is, how I ate and kept a roof over my head and went to school. There was a desperation there for me, which grew into a large amount of disease because I could not do the things they were asking me to do and live my truth also. Because for me, I never saw a problem with someone being queer. I never saw people as problems. Inherently, the church expects you to see people as problems because the church is the hospital, right? So you come in with problems and you get healed and you get fixed. So if you don't inherently see someone as a problem, then you're the problem because you're stopping that machine from going. In similar ways, people who are spending a lot of time in religion, especially religion that evokes a lot of fear and a lot of guilt over being who you are and existing as you exist in the world. So linking back to purity culture and the way that purity culture makes women hate their bodies and men hate their brains, and the way that this understanding of what we're meant for guilts women who are not wanting to have children or not able to have children into feeling like they're shirking their responsibilities because they're not having children. That guilt is meant to keep people down so that you can keep them compliant. And if you look at any government in history that has needed their people to be compliant in order to exist, they kept their people in fear, in need, and they would hand out sort of like scraps along the way, right? Similar to how religion does. In religion, they teach you to sort of live for those pieces here and there. Within the church, we call them mountaintop experiences, right? That these pieces here and there that make you feel close to creation, close to the world, close to the earth, close to each other, close to God. And things are set up like that. When you look at weekend retreats for youth and everything, they're set up to exhaust you and make you emotionally vulnerable and make you question your life outside of the retreat, outside of that experience, so that when you get to like that big cry night, you end up crying and apologizing for who you are and apologizing for the way that you live your life and saying everything about you is wrong and leaving it at that altar so that God can fill you up and tell you what's right. Where is there space for self-esteem there? There isn't. This becomes especially important when people leave religion then, because you've never been taught to have good self-esteem. Believe it or not, folks, self-esteem needs to be taught. Most societies as a whole operate similarly to religions, which is why religions catch on, because it sort of works people's brainwaves that have been molded into that. But society as a whole, whether it's through social media, whether it's through people around you, whether it's through the ways that purity culture and evangelical Christianity has seeped into society and society's expectations and definitions of right and wrong. So even if you were never religious, these things still happen to you. You're fighting an uphill battle, right? Developing self-esteem, if you were never taught it, if you never witnessed it, if you never really considered it, is hard. And the most interesting thing that I have found about people building that awareness of self-esteem and that high regard for self and for needs and for wants even, is it is one of the last steps when we leave religions. When you build your self-esteem up, when you understand yourself to be of worth because you exist and not because of how you stack up to those around you, you also have to really start to face the idea that people who were supposed to love and care for you were okay with you being in those situations. Parents, guardians, respected adults, they were okay with you growing up and feeling like you didn't deserve anything. Whatever their motivation for it was, whether they grew up that way, they didn't realize there was anything wrong with it, whatever it was, you still have to sort of sit with and digest the idea that people who are supposed to care for you brought you to that situation and honestly made you feel like you had no choice but to stay. Because when you leave, you lose everything. You lose potentially them. You lose your support system. You lose your friends. You lose these happy memories that still kind of get to live as happy memories in your past, as long as you don't look at them too closely and pull them apart for what it was doing to your psyche. That loss is intense. And it is almost impossible, given human nature and what you've been taught your whole life, to not assume you have some blame. It's almost impossible to not, on some level, at some point during your recovery, say, how did I not see it? How did I not know? What was I thinking? What's wrong with me? Or it goes deeper and it's super internalized and it's, I'm not happy in this aspect of my life, but I should be happy because at least it's not this bad. And so I don't get to be upset about this aspect of my life. What? That's a self-esteem issue, folks. And that is something that I hear from everybody. That's something I say to myself sometimes. That sort of insidious nature of do not ask for more than you deserve and do not forget those who have less than you is another tactic to keeping you stuck. I want to make an important caveat here. We live in a society in the US, in the UK, in Canada, across the world where people are not treated equally, where privilege exists, and where those who are born into less privileged situations do in fact have less opportunity than others who are born into more privileged situations. That is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that idea that comes from religion, comes from Christianity especially, where they say, yes, you're unhappy in your marriage, but you are not being abused, and so you can't complain about the ways your needs aren't being met. That is incorrect. You absolutely do get to feel upset and do something about it, or just sit in it for a little while if you want to. That's your choice. You get to do that until you're ready to do something about it. The other piece of this is when you're in religion early in your life. For all of us, early in our lives, we are connecting experience with emotion. If you have an experience of speaking your mind and people around you think it's appalling, you are going to eventually connect speaking your mind with shame. Not speaking your mind with making other people upset, though. That's important. Those are connecting to experiences. You're connecting experience to emotion. And the more that gets enhanced, the less you're going to be likely to speak your mind because you're trying to avoid shame. And when that emotion is assigned that significance in your life, that is going to follow you until you unassign it. When the emotion of I'm uncomfortable, I don't agree, I don't feel like my needs are being met, I don't actually know if I believe this, but I can't ask questions. When those things are happening and you're experiencing them and you've got fear in expressing them or there's shame in expressing them, you are going to connect, this doesn't feel right, this is not comfortable, I don't like this, I'm not safe, with fear and shame, which are going to be some of the last things that you're going to untangle, because you can't untangle that until you're safe, until you're established, until you have support systems. If you want to hear more about this, I would encourage you to go ahead and check out this video right here that talks about that specific piece of how to recover from religion and move forward in more detail. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.